Welcome to Love and Abuse, the show about helping you identify poisonous communication and toxic behavior. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. That's why it's important that you learn to pinpoint manipulative and controlling behavior so that you keep your power and your sanity. I'm your host, Paul Coliani. Hello, welcome to Love and Abuse. All the information on this show is meant for educational purposes only. Always seek a professional for your mental health and well-being, and always pick your battles wisely. And before we begin today, I'm just going to say this. It's gonna be all right. You're gonna be fine. You're gonna get through whatever you're going through. You'll figure it out. You'll learn to trust your decisions again. You'll learn to trust yourself again. You'll learn to trust your instincts again. You will learn where your sanity went and get it back. You will learn what behavior is hurtful, emotionally abusive, controlling, manipulative, and you will learn to discern. And learning to discern is an important part of your healing and growth, because when you've been in an emotionally abusive situation for a long period of time, discernment seems to go out the window, or at least it takes a back seat for a while. That decreasing discernment begins when the abusive behavior starts. And that is intentional sometimes. It's by design. And if it's not intentional, it's still by design, because emotional abuse does wear away at your reasoning and your logic and your sanity to the point where you are believing a model of reality that someone else is creating for you. So I want you to keep this in mind for every single episode that you listen to, for everything that you read about, that you hear about when it comes to emotionally abusive behavior, so that you understand there's a reprogramming that takes place. You will be reprogrammed in an abusive or hurtful situation. And that reprogramming happens under the radar typically, even though you might see the red flags, or you consider them orange flags, or maybe minor light orange flags where you're not sure if you're experiencing what you're experiencing. You're not sure if the behavior is toxic or harmful, but it's important to recognize any flags when they come up so you don't go down a road of continuous decrease in your discernment. So just remember that as you move forward, trying to sort all of this stuff out. Any emotionally abusive behavior that you experience, any hurtful behavior, any difficulty in your relationships, whether they're romantic, platonic, or family, any challenge that you go through with another person that seems to be controlling, manipulative, or harmful in any way, and even when it doesn't seem harmful, if they seem like they're okay and there's nothing wrong with them, and they point the finger at you and say that you're the problem and you need to get help and you're the one that's not seeing things reasonably, this could be their programming, intentionally or not, unconsciously or consciously. There are many people that don't even know they're doing it, but regardless of whether it's intentional or not, the reprogramming takes place. And I'm going to say this, and I mean it with all the love and respect for you, sometimes you unintentionally allow it to happen. So a flag, a minor orange flag comes along, and you unintentionally let it go. You let it slip by because you want to have faith that they're not doing bad behavior. And you've seen nothing but good behavior in the past, for example. I mean, not everyone, but there are certain relationships that start with good behavior, and then it turns into bad behavior. And this is mostly with romantic relationships, where you are starting something and they are on their best behavior. Both of you usually are, right? You're both on your best behavior, but your best behavior and their best behavior, one of you might be a little deceptive. One of you might be showing something that lures somebody in to a relationship where they get sucked into the love aspect of it and the strong feeling aspects of it, and then it's hard to get out because they are so deeply connected and their lives are intertwined. So if you're with someone and they are emotionally abusive in any way, you are probably intertwined with them in some way. There are certain commitments, whether they're emotional commitments or maybe they're financial commitments, maybe they are living arrangements, maybe you've intertwined your lives in other ways, but that often happens as well. And you got to see these things in the time period that they're happening as well. If you are being asked to move in really quick, or get married really quick, or let's move to this place where you don't know anyone, let's isolate you from everyone, you just want to be aware of these maybe orange flags, or maybe nothing. This is the hardest part. Is it nothing? Is it just an oversight on your part, or maybe you're interpreting it the wrong way? This is where you need to connect the dots. This is where you need to be discerning. So I just want you to be aware of your discernment and maybe getting that discernment back if you don't currently believe in yourself or believe in your decisions. If you don't currently trust yourself or trust your decisions, trust your perception. If you don't have that kind of trust in your own beliefs and perceptions, then discernment is very difficult, if not impossible. I mean, sometimes you can be so far intertwined with somebody that is being hurtful that your discernment is just way off. But this is what this show is about. This is why I tell you to do your due diligence, do your research, learn about emotional abuse. There are people just like me that teach all different aspects of it. I want you to learn as much as possible. Be knowledgeable. Your knowledge enhances and strengthens your discernment. Your understanding of bad behavior enhances and strengthens your discernment. And then as you learn more, you become more discerning and you become more trusting in yourself. That's not the only formula for discernment, and that's not the only formula for healing and getting through something like this where somebody is being hurtful or deceptive or lying or manipulating, but it is an important component of learning and healing and growing and moving past being the victim of an emotionally abusive person. And let me swing back to what I said earlier. You're going to make it through this. You will. You're going to make it through whatever you're going through. And I know there are different people listening, and some people aren't in such a crazy situation. Some people are in lighter situations. Some people are learning and discovering what's going on in the people in the relationships that they're in. So there are all kinds of people at different levels, but whoever needs to hear this, you're gonna make it through it. There are people that have been in your situation or worse and decided to take a stand and make decisions for themselves. I'm not saying you take a stand against someone else unless you want to and you feel like you can do that. I'm just saying you take a stand for yourself. You step into your power and move forward in your power and keep your power. Talk about what discernment does for you. It helps you get your power back because you start understanding what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's bad. You become more critical of the data that's coming at you. You see something and then you understand something and you start calling it for what it is. And that's very powerful. And this is one thing you can do to keep your power is to start being more discerning and start calling it for what it is, even if you're not sure. I like to use a gauge actually. Whenever I'm confronted with a situation where I'm starting to feel bad, I'm starting to feel like my power is being drained from me, I might turn on that discernment filter and tell myself, whoa, something might be happening here. There might be some sort of situation that's developing. That person might be doing something that is causing me to feel this way. And when I feel whatever that is, something not good, something negative, I'm going to be open to what's happening. And I told this story on my other show, The Overwhelmed Brain. I went into a music store once and I was buying some, I don't know, microphone, I think. And when I was checking out, the guy, he quick talked me or something and said, you need the warranty. And he threw in the warranty for extra money. And I thought, what just happened here? He goes, oh yeah, you'll need the warranty because, you can turn it in anytime you need it. But he didn't tell me it was optional. And so when he was talking, I had that feeling, the feeling you get when maybe somebody's trying to con you or deceive you. And so I felt like that was happening. And my old self, my people-pleasing self, would have said, well, he knows best. He's the authority. He must know because he works here. And if he thinks I'm going to need a new microphone in 6 months and the warranty's going to cover me, he must know what he's talking about. So, he's sold me items before, so I should really trust him. But this time I decided to listen to that feeling. The feeling that I felt inside of me, that it just felt strange. It felt bad. It was my intuition telling me something's not right. And so I kind of went through the conversation in my mind really quick and decided to ask myself, what just happened that I'm not comfortable with? I think that's a good question sometimes. What just happened that I'm not comfortable with? And what came to my mind was, I'm not really comfortable paying for something that I didn't ask to be added to my bill, yet it's on the bill, and I felt like I didn't have a choice. And when that came to my mind, instead of passing it off like my old people-pleaser self would have done, I decided to say, hey, you just threw that on my bill. You just threw that extra charge on my bill, and I didn't say you could. That's not ethical. You should have seen his face because he was surprised that I caught him in what he was trying to do. In fact, the way he tried to talk his way out of it proved even more that he was trying to pull one over on me. And so he was saying, well, I thought you just want this. And he couldn't really give me an explanation because I called him out. I just called him out right there. And he backed off and he took the charge off. And I said, that's just not a nice thing to do. I said, that's not ethical. You shouldn't have done that. And then I took my stuff and I left and I never went back there. I mean, that whole store lost my business because I didn't feel comfortable going back there anymore. And it's sad because, that guy was a nice guy, but he tried to deceive me. He tried to make money off of me. He tried to con me. And I tell you that story because you should listen to your gut, even if you don't trust it, because it's telling you something. And you may have to ask yourself, what was uncomfortable about that? Why do I feel uncomfortable about this? Even if you have to think about it later. And then when you think about what happened and you figure out why you're uncomfortable, even if the reason you're uncomfortable is, I just feel bad. That might be the only reason you come up with, or I can't figure out why I feel like I'm at fault. No matter what comes up for you, just go with it, believe it. I can't figure out why I feel like I'm at fault, which that would probably lead you to being blamed. I mean, what's the cause and effect there? You're being blamed for something, so you feel at fault. But then you might go back even further than that and ask yourself, well, what am I being blamed for, and should I have been blamed? Was I really at fault, or am I just being blamed? And is my focus there? And is that what the bad feeling's about? Because if it's there, then that will help you narrow down what's going on inside of you and what's going on inside the relationship so that you can start building that discernment muscle inside of you. So that's just a quick little side story. That's not really what this episode's about. I'm going to read you an email and maybe 2 emails today, but I'm just going to get right into these emails because I think I can answer the first one pretty darn quickly. The first one says, "Hey Paul, I'm so grateful for love and abuse. It was a big part in giving me the strength to leave a very manipulative partner who had been gaslighting me for years and made me a shell of my normal, bubbly, and confident personality. I went to counseling to begin recovery from it all, and I've been building myself back up and recently started dating someone new who so far seems lovely, but I can't find the right words to explain to him the emotional trauma I went through in my last relationship, and also how that impacts me being much more cautious entering a new relationship. But I am interested and want to see where it goes. Any words of advice would be greatly appreciated. Okay, this is a great question. I am so glad that you are in a new relationship that is going well. I hope it's still going well. I think this email might be a month or two old, but I hope everything is going well with that. My suggestion when it comes to a new relationship is probably not talk too much about the emotionally abusive behavior of the last person. The reason I say that is because if you just happen to get another emotionally abusive person, they're going to hear what you have to say about the emotionally abusive behavior about the last person, and they're going to use that as some sort of feedback for their own behavior. Now, what I mean by that is if you say, my last boyfriend used to yell at me every time I didn't do the dishes. That could be minor, that could be major, but I'm just using this as an example. If this new person has any inclination to be emotionally abusive, whether consciously or not, then I don't want him collecting data on you about what your trigger points are and what your vulnerabilities are. In fact, I prefer you to be continuously cautious, maybe up to, 6 months, 8 months. I want you to be more reserved than not. This is my opinion. I'm not saying that you have to be this way. Sometimes the victims of emotional abuse fall in love pretty fast. That's not necessarily a fault, but it can be a vulnerability, especially when an emotionally abusive person knows how to put on the charm and appear like everything you want them to be. That's very easy to fall in love with very fast. So when you have a great relationship, I like to take love slow. I like to go day by day and just get a feel for everything. I don't open the floodgates and allow the love to flow. I used to. Every relationship I've ever been in, I did that. But then I met the person who I'm with now, and she didn't open the floodgates, which allowed me to explore that in myself because I always did. It's like, first day, you're everything I want. Floodgates open, I'm in love. I stopped doing that, and I think it's a very healthy approach because then you trickle in vulnerabilities. You trickle in feelings. You don't just open the door and say, here I am, everything about me. Some people may not agree with this. Maybe this is unorthodox. Maybe some people say, you should be vulnerable from day one. I get that. I think it's nice to be vulnerable and honest in who you are with people. Be very transparent. I love that. But I also love the idea of moving slowly. In fact, I love that more. I love the idea of moving more slowly to give the relationship time to blossom based on the growth instead of having everything on the table and have all your weaknesses, all your vulnerabilities, and all your strengths, having it all out there so that someone can see it all and pick and choose or collect all that information for feedback for themselves. Some people are 100% trustworthy and you can trust them with all of that. But when you've been in an emotionally abusive relationship before and you're not sure about your next relationship, those floodgates need to stay closed and you can trickle in vulnerabilities. And that just means you don't give away the farm. You don't give everything up on the first few weeks or first few months. You just take it slow in the sense that you allow yourself to have more and more intimate feelings every day, every week, every month, but don't go all in. And again, somebody might disagree with that, and I'm okay with that. but I'm talking to people that have been in emotionally abusive relationships and aren't sure how to proceed. Just like this person, I'm not sure how to even explain it. How do I explain what I went through? I would wait, there's really no timeline, but maybe 6 months before you start talking about this stuff. I mean, it doesn't mean you can't say, oh, I had a really difficult time with my last boyfriend because he was hurtful in many ways. You can certainly talk like that and talk about that. He was hurtful in many ways. And if your new partner wants to dive into that further and say, oh, what happened? What did he do? What's going on? You might want to say, I'm not ready to share all of that. I'm just happy that you and I are together. We're having a great time, and I'm loving the time we're spending together. And a good partner is going to say, hey, you know what? You don't have to share any of that. That's your past. And if you feel comfortable sharing that, great. If you don't, I honor that. And I want that. I want you to feel comfortable either keeping it to yourself or sharing it with me. Totally up to you. That's a good partner, or at least a good response. I don't know if it's a good partner, but a potentially good partner will say that. They will give you the space to share or not. That's an empowered place. You have the choice to share or not. That is your power. And when you stay in that power, that is a good path to take. When the power starts to be drained from you, that's when you need to strengthen your discernment muscle. But let's just say that it has been a while. Let's just say that you have developed trust and you care about each other and you do not see any of the red flags or the orange flags or the minor flags, anything like this that might be considered hurtful behavior or even abusive behavior. If you're not seeing any of that and you're feeling really good about the relationship and your partner seems to be pretty transparent and connected with his emotions and allowing you to be yourself and not seemingly trying to force you or control you to do or say or think anything. If you're in that space where your intimate feelings are growing stronger and stronger and you have that level of trust and you don't feel like you're falling into any toxic situation, then I do have a suggestion for you on how to share what you went through. I would listen to 2 episodes together and pause when you need to pause to explain what you went through. The 2 episodes are, let me pull them up here. These are on loveandabuse.com. One of them is called Emotional Abuse Explained for Your Friends, Family, Attorney, Therapist, or anyone else that may need to know what you're experiencing. That's the whole title. Emotional Abuse Explained for Your Friends, Family. Once you go to loveandabuse.com, all you have to do is type in the word explained or something in the search field or type in the word therapist, and that episode will pop up. So that's one I think you can listen to together. Another one's called The Narcissist Under the Hood, The Difficulty of Explaining Emotional Abuse to Friends and Family. So that's going to be a good one for you as well, because it's very likely that what you've experienced in your past is going to appear in one or both of those episodes. So I would just say listen to those together. I'm going to play these episodes and I'm going to pause when I need to pause to explain to you what I felt like, what I went through. And, there are times where you're going to go, yes, this is exactly what I mean. This is exactly what Paul said right there. This is exactly what I went through. So that will be helpful to you. And that's my answer for you. That's what I want you to do. I want you to listen to those 2 episodes because it is difficult. I mean, it is so difficult. This entire show is about explaining emotional abuse to people who may not understand it fully or who are going through it and want more information on how to get through it, how to deal with it, how to heal from it, and how to move on from it. And that doesn't always mean leaving the relationship. For anyone listening for the first time, and never come on here and say, you should leave the emotional abuser, they're terrible. I never say that. I never say that because it's not necessary, because that is a personal choice and I don't know your situation. And you could be with an emotionally abusive person who wants to change, who doesn't want to hurt you, and maybe they can't help it. Maybe they're trying. Maybe they don't even understand what they're doing. There are people like that. And then there are the intentionally abusive people. Those are the ones that know what they're doing and don't care. If they have no empathy for you and just don't seem to care, that's a problem. It can be addressed. It can be brought up in a conversation. But if they don't change, even after they know they're hurting you, like you say, hey, do you realize when you do or say that it hurts me? I mean, that's a good question for somebody that may or may not know they're hurting you. You just ask them, do you realize that when you do that, it hurts me? Because if they say, well, no, I didn't realize that, then you have an opportunity to expand your relationship's possibilities. Because if they say no and they suddenly realize that they're hurting you and they don't want to hurt you, that would be a great conversation. Well, you are hurting me, and it does feel bad when you say this. I mean, it feels like you don't love me. I'm hoping when you have that kind of conversation, they go, oh my God, I do love you, and let's talk about this. I don't mean to hurt you. That would be a great, healthy response. Let's talk about this. I don't mean to hurt you. And then I've heard from people that have asked that question, hey, do you realize that when you do that, it hurts me? And the person says, yes. Yes, I do realize it. Those are the people you have to be careful about, because those are the ones that are doing it intentionally. They know they're hurting you. They're doing it intentionally. And you just have to be aware that's who you're dealing with. So again, I'm not saying you have to leave somebody like that, but you should certainly bring this up. Do you realize you're hurting me? Because if you don't, it may never come up in a way that you need to know. I mean, you may beat around the bush a little bit and not ask that direct question and try to figure out if they even feel bad that you're hurt, but they may not put the pieces together that they are directly responsible for that hurt. I speak from experience. I used to hurt without knowing I was hurting. That was a big revelation for me. It was a huge discovery for me. It was part of my healing process, is to discover that I was being hurtful and actually choose to be empathetic instead. That was like the day my empathy kicked in full gear, when I realized I was actually being hurtful. And there are people that can change, but not everyone. Not everyone. If they know they're hurting you, that's a problem, and that needs to be addressed. So remember that question. Do you know that what you did or said hurts me? And if they say no, and you can have a conversation about that, make sure to follow up with, now that you know it hurts me, will you stop doing it? That's an important follow-up question. Now that you know it hurts me, will you stop doing it? Because if they continue to do it and they know it hurts you, now it's just like getting a yes on the first question, because now they know. So this is a very important piece of the emotional abuse puzzle when you're trying to solve or fix problems in the relationship, is to know the answer to that question. And then when they don't know they're hurting you and you tell them they're hurting you and they continue to hurt you, that's a problem. Again, they may need to work on themselves. They may need to go to therapy. They may need to figure it out. But if they continue to hurt you, knowing it hurts you, there's something wrong about that. That's an unhealthy place to be with somebody who knows and intentionally hurts you. Now, there are people that can't help it. They have emotional triggers and they're trying to get through those triggers, and they just go off on you, whatever that means. They yell, they lie, they cheat, they manipulate, whatever they're doing. There are people that they seemingly can't control themselves. But again, if that's them, I'm hoping they come to a realization that they need to work on this. I mean, this is why I create Healed Being over at healedbeing.com. I help the emotionally abusive people that want to change, because I've heard from so many of them that know they're emotionally abusive and don't want to be. I tell you this because I want to give you hope that just because somebody is this way, I want to give you some hope that some people can change. That I'm not saying everyone can. I have a message right now that I'm going to read to you that has gone through the ringer with a particular person that she hoped would change. I'm going to read you the email. The email goes like this. Hi, Paul. I recently left my partner of 5 years. There were a lot of incidents of lies and deceit throughout the relationship, and I'm trying to figure out if I'm to blame. I'm quite strong-willed, and I stick up for myself, so we often crashed horns. After every incident, I would always justify his behavior, and he'd always promise to change. Day to day, he was quite loving and always wanted to be with me, so I didn't doubt his love, but struggled to understand why he'd lie to me. During arguments, he'd blow up, and so would I, because I'd always feel that we'd never get to a resolution, and I was always so frustrated. All the incidents of lies and other things made me withdraw from him in many ways, and I would question him a lot. I wasn't happy, but I wanted to be with him. Anytime I built up hope and got closer again, there would be another incident, and then I'd withdraw. In the end, after he moved into my house, we had a massive argument, and he told me he'd been secretly drinking for years. This declaration came after I found messages of him and another woman. Again, I gave it one more time, but I was heartbroken. Within 3 weeks, there was another lie. I told him to leave, and I was done. I know I don't deserve the things he's done to me, but sometimes I think, did he just have to lie because I am strong and driven and I have high expectations? If I didn't call him out in everything, would he have been more himself and not felt like he had to lie? Was he messaging females because I made him feel bad about himself? I probably did make him feel bad, but I was hurt by all the incidents that he didn't stick to his plan of changing. Was I an emotional abuser? I was sad about the relationship toward the end, but I was still kind to him. I opened my house to him and his children, and I showed him love, but I would challenge him on his behavior. If I had left him alone, not over-investigated, kept loving him as much as I did at the start, not shouted back, would he have stopped? His behavior seemed to get worse and peak toward the end. He often took blame for our fallouts. He has said that he is selfish and doesn't know why. He said he loves me, but he can't understand why he does things. From day one, he has taken responsibility for what he does, but he never follows through with his words. Any advice or direction would be great. I feel bad about my part in things, but I don't think I would have questioned or fought back had I been treated better, but I don't like to blame others for my behavior. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. That was a roller coaster relationship. I'm not sure if you said you were completely broken up. You left your partner. Okay. You left your partner 5 years. So the first thing I'm going to say is, because you noticed all his lies and because it bothered you that he lied so much and you caught him lying over and over again, I'm going to say that you are probably an honest person, because honest people recognize that stuff. They recognize when people lie to them and it bothers them. But you justified the behavior. You thought he would change. So let me make sure that you understand something I talked about recently, I think on an episode of The Overwhelmed Brain, where I talk about taking people at face value. In this case, he is telling you things that you are taking at face value, but the problem is you're taking the wrong information at face value. What you should take at face value is that he lies. He is a lying person. He lies and he continues to lie, and he has no reason to tell the truth, and he is not going to tell the truth because he lies. So I'm just going to drill this into your head. He's a liar, and unless he is enlightened or seeks therapy or works on himself or reaches some sort of epiphany, he's going to continue to lie. That is his behavior. That is what he does. And that is probably a survival mechanism for him and will continue to be until he finds a better way and a healthier way to deal with challenging situations. So, one, he's a liar. He will always be a liar until any of that stuff happens. Do I know that for sure? No, but something has to happen. Something has to happen in order for him to stop lying, because he wouldn't have lied to you for so long if he wasn't this way to begin with. So I want you to just understand that that's what he does and that's who he is for now. I hope he changes, but for now, that's who he is. So take that, drill that into your head, and burn that as something that he does and what he is. What that means is no matter what you did or what you do, it wouldn't make him honest. An honest person, at least someone who tells the truth most of the time, is going to say the truth even if the truth is scary. Meaning, you wouldn't catch him in a lie, you would catch him in a truth that hurts, or at least what he thinks might hurt. For example, he's texting another woman, and the texting gets a little bit crazy. It gets a little bit like sexting, or it's just too intimate. And if he were honest, he would say, oh my God, I really need to tell my wife because I shouldn't be doing this. So he's going to come to you and say, look, this is going to hurt. I'm going to tell you the truth, and you're not going to like it. And you're going to say, well, what do you mean? What's going on? And you'll be open to it because he is priming you. He's getting you prepared for something that's going to be tough to hear. This is what I call a hard truth. So he prepares you by saying, look, I just want to let you know that I was texting this woman. I shouldn't have done it, but it turned into sexting, and it went bad, and she wanted to meet, and I said, no way. And then I stopped doing it. I'm telling you because, I want you to know, I want to be truthful, and you have every right to be mad at me. You have every right to kick me out. I shouldn't have done that. It's an emotional affair. It's even more than that. It's almost a digital affair, if you can even call it that. But I just want to let you know that this is what happened, because I want to be honest with you. And I feel like a real a-hole, and I don't really know what else to say except that I'm sorry and I was a jerk. You may hear that and say, wow, this is awful. This is the worst thing that could happen. And then you may have to process it. And you may or may not want to keep him in your life after that. Or maybe you'll realize that he told the truth, and that's a good thing. So I'd rather have somebody tell the truth than hide that from me. So you'd have to process that. But that's still the honest approach. It's still a hard truth because it was hard to hear, but it's still an honest approach. That would be someone who, even if you do have high expectations, even if you are strong and driven, it doesn't matter because the truth is the truth. And even if he was afraid of your response, which, that's why people lie. They're typically afraid of the response that they're going to get, the consequences of telling you the truth. Even if that were the truth, that's not what a relationship is made of. A relationship is made of transparency and the truth and getting through those hard moments, because when you do, it either strengthens or ends the relationship. Now, when I say that, usually the truth strengthens the relationship. What he didn't want was the relationship to end. So he lied. But that's no excuse. That's like saying, I wanted to protect your feelings, so I didn't tell you about the affair. That's no excuse. I don't think it's a good excuse to say, I'm protecting your feelings, because you're probably protecting yourself. That's like telling somebody, I didn't tell you about the dent I put in your car because I wanted to protect your feelings. Yeah, that's going to be a hard truth. I dented your new car, but I didn't want to tell you to protect your feelings. So what ends up happening is they find the dent, and they don't know who did it. And now what? Do you lie about it? I mean, this is what happens with lies. You just get into this downward spiral of continuous lie after lie after lie, or dig yourself in a hole that it's hard to get out of. So it's not good to lie. But we all know that. We all know it's not good to lie. But for her, she's been dealing with lies ever since, you said how many years? There's so many years that went by, lie after lie after lie. Take his lying at face value. He lies, which means if you were still in a relationship with him, I would tell you, do not believe anything he says. I know I shouldn't tell you such an absolute statement, but I want you to understand that when somebody shows up as something that you don't want them to be, don't fool yourself into thinking they're going to be anything else. That is important. You do not want to fool yourself or, like you said, justify behaviors just so you feel better about it, so that you don't think that you made a bad decision and continue making bad decisions, staying with somebody that is doing something that is hurtful to you or deceptive or betraying or whatever. You only hurt yourself when you continue not to take what you see at face value. You hurt yourself when you justify bad behavior. And let me give you an example. If I caught my girlfriend in a lie, I mean, it would have to be a pretty big lie. It can't be like, I didn't tell you about the surprise birthday party. That I can understand. That's fine. But if she lied to me and I caught it, and I probably wouldn't be looking for it because I trust her, but let's just say I caught her in the lie and I approached her and she said, I did lie and I'm sorry and I only lied because of this and this, then we could probably get through it. It probably wouldn't be a big deal. It probably would have been an old emotional trigger or some old trauma from an ex or from childhood, and I could probably understand how it could happen. But that's once. That's me looking at a situation and seeing it happen once and understanding that, we all make mistakes. That's once. What do I do if it happens twice? You lied again? I mean, I thought we had this talk. I thought that we went past this. I thought that our bond strengthened because we had this talk and we decided that lying was a bad idea and not healthy for the relationship. And we agreed that there would be no more lies, but you lied again? And so here I am thinking, wow, she came clean about the first lie only after I caught her, but now she made a second lie. I'm going to really start evaluating my relationship. And this is only the second lie. Am I being too harsh? No, I'm being self-nurturing and self-compassionate and self-protective. I'm not being too harsh because I need to know I can trust the person I'm with. And let's just say that we did work it out. Maybe it was a whole nother excuse or a whole nother reason. We worked it out. What happens at lie number 3? For me, I can already hear myself saying, you got to get out of there. You could love everything about her, but isn't honesty on your list of values of what you want in a relationship? This is my thought process. I'm thinking honesty, having fun together, sharing experiences, attraction, good sex, all of this stuff is important to me in a relationship. And if honesty isn't being met, does the other stuff really matter? That's where I go with this. So on number 3, I'm ready to pack. I'm ready to split the house up. I'm ready to do a bunch of stuff. I'm not saying I'm going to. I'm not saying that that's my next natural step, but that's where I want to go. One foot is out the door. That's me. This is where I am inside of me because I have relationship values. And when those values aren't being met, how can I be happy in the relationship? If one of these values isn't being met, then I have to seriously consider what I consider a relationship, at least a romantic one. And honesty has to be in there for me. Honesty has to be in there. So I told you that because what do you value in your relationship? For the person who wrote, if honesty wasn't in your list of values, it needs to be because it bothers you. I'm not saying that everyone requires honesty, but I think most people do. If honesty is not high on your list of values, it probably needs to be, especially now, whether with him or with another relationship. And because it would be high on your list of values of what you value in a relationship, when there is dishonesty, your discernment comes in and says, wait, this is a problem. We can't have this. This is unacceptable. I will not go any further with you if you continue to do this. That way, when the second time comes around, it's a shock. And when the third time comes around, you have one foot out the door. Again, I'm not saying you should leave. I'm just saying that you have this thought process so that you show up for yourself. You are self-compassionate. You are self-nurturing. You are self-protective. This is how you see things at face value. This is when you look at something for what it is instead of what you turn it into. What is it? What is happening? This person who wrote, she knows what's happening. She can see it. It's clear. And it happened over and over and over and over again for years. And I'm just going to guess, she probably said, why do you keep lying? You lied to me again? I mean, this is my guess, and I'm not trying to put her down or be condescending or anything like that. I'm just putting myself in her shoes. Why are you lying to me again? I thought we talked about this. But how many times do you have to say that before you understand that, how can I say this? I don't want you to feel like a sucker. And if you don't want to feel like a sucker, you want to be very clear of what the truth is. When the truth shows itself to you day after week after month after year, you have to call a duck, or whatever you want to call it. You have to see what is happening and accept what is happening. Oh, he lies. He's a liar. Now I understand. Now I accept it. Now I'll no longer be surprised that he does it. I hope he changes, but I'm not going to expect that anymore. In fact, you even said I'm a person of high expectations. If you have high expectations and they aren't met, what is the consequence? If somebody doesn't meet your high expectation, what is the consequence? That almost tells me, and don't take this the wrong way, that you have low expectations of yourself. And all I mean by that is you should expect more from yourself. And I don't mean to say that you're at fault, or I don't want to say that you're to blame. I'm just saying there's a point where you see what's happening and you accept at face value what's happening. And then you ask yourself, do I want this in my life? And do I want this in my relationship? Do I want this from a partner? I mean, take the names out, whatever his name is. Take the idea that you're married or not married. Take the idea that you own a house together or not. Just have these simple questions. Do I want this in a relationship? That's a disconnected, disassociated question. It's disconnected from actual people. You're just saying, in general, do I want this in a relationship? And that will give you the answer. And I understand what you're asking. Is it me? Is it my fault that I do all of this? No, if you're showing up honestly and trying, and the other person's showing up dishonestly and says they're trying, but they're not, maybe he is trying, but nothing's happening, then you have to accept that no matter how hard he tries, he lies. And no matter how much he says he'll change, he won't. Period. Whether he intends to or not, it's just not going to happen. And you have to set yourself a deadline. I mean, this is what I like to do. If I don't see a change by, put a date out there, January 1st, if I don't see a change by then I need to take the next right step for me. So to answer your question directly, my belief is it doesn't sound like you were emotionally abusive at all. It sounds like you just kept giving him chance after chance after chance to the point where you drove yourself crazy by exposing yourself to such toxic behavior. I don't think I'm wrong about this, but I could be. But from everything that you described, it sounds like you were in a very toxic situation, and you weren't the toxic one. You were exposed to the radiation, or sometimes I say relationship radiation. You were in this toxic relationship that had all this radiation, and you kept getting exposed to it. And the more you were exposed to it, the worse your discernment became, and the farther away from your relationship values you went. And no matter how much of a strong-willed person you are, that doesn't make someone emotionally abusive. There's already something in there that needs healing that they haven't healed from yet. So don't blame yourself. Trust yourself. Know what you saw. Lie after lie after lie and other hurtful behavior that he did. Those are all the dots that you connect and figure out the big picture that this is a very unhealthy situation. And no matter how many times he says he's going to change, you've clearly discovered that he will not. You don't need any more evidence to see the truth. I hope this helps. Thank you for sending me this message, and I do hope you are healing from this, and I hope you get through it. I appreciate you. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Love and Abuse. Share this with others that might benefit. Head over to loveandabuse.com, where I offer the MEAN workbook, an assessment and healing guide for difficult relationships. The workbook gives you your MEAN score, which will help you pinpoint the specific hurtful behaviors you're experiencing. It is created to help you make the next best decision for you and those you love. Sometimes it's hard to make decisions without knowing what's true and what isn't. The workbook helps you determine what's true. It also answers the question of why you leave so many interactions feeling bad. Let it help you put into words what you're experiencing. Reach clarity over at loveandabuse.com. For those who believe they are the emotionally abusive person and want to change that behavior, head over to healedbeing.com and start the Healed Being program. Take the journey that will help you heal and stop the behavior that may be destroying your relationships. This show exists to remind you that you are not alone and you're not going crazy. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. You deserve honesty and sincerity. You deserve to be treated as worthy and significant. Because you are. Thanks for joining me today. We'll talk again soon.